This television is a portal to the past. Inside sit the dreams of one's youth and the fears of one's future. When imagination equates to a certain period of time and limits are left behind. The practical and the impossible cross over during those fleeting hours known as the Twilight-Tober Zone. What makes a home, and when does it cease to become one? Empty halls where happiness once resided can all too easily be abandoned. But what's left behind? Is there some residual emotion that one could pick back up upon returning? Can that emotion sustain us? Those memories comfort us? Can we survive off memories alone, with no one else to share them with, except the venue where they occurred? Sometimes those places remember, so you don't have to. The place is here. The time is now. Where is everybody? They're with you, about to enter the Twilight-Tober Zone. Where Is Everybody is the very first episode of The Twilight Zone. It aired on October 2nd, 1959, and impressed the bigwigs enough for a full season to be ordered. The pilot version that was only shown to sponsors and executives featured Westbrook Van Voorhees doing the narration. He was replaced by series creator Rod Serling himself after other options were considered, including, most notably, Orson Welles. A different title sequence was also created by the time the episode made it to air. Rod Serling originally had another story in mind for the pilot called The Happy Place, but it was rejected for fears it would scare off advertisers. In that script, the narrative took place in a society where people who made it to the age of 60 were executed for no longer being useful. Where Is Everybody was definitely a safer route to go down, as there wasn't anything quite so shocking. It follows a man with amnesia entering a small town that looks to be inhabited. Music is playing, shops are open, and even food sits out ready to be consumed. But it's empty. Slowly, the man starts to remember details about who he is, but it may not be enough to save him from his desperate isolation and feeling of being watched. This was definitely a solid start to the series. The creepy tone of the whole episode sticks with you, and that fear of isolation is something that most of us can relate to in some way. All that is exemplified by the beautiful sets, lighting, and camera work, especially towards the end when the sun goes down. The shots they went with here look phenomenal. The slanted Dutch angles, in combination with the trademark black and white aesthetic, came together to create some fantastic visuals. The town square itself was shot on the Universal Studios lot. You may recognize it from a famous movie that came out a few decades later. I had my suspicions about that upon this latest rewatch, and it was confirmed in several of the commentary tracks on the Blu-ray. The strengths of this episode are definitely the visuals and overall atmosphere. What don't hold up quite so well are the dialogue and some of the line delivery. These two problems go hand in hand as Earl Holliman, the lead actor, has no one to bounce his dialogue off of. Rod Serling himself would later admit that the constant monologuing he wrote wasn't believable enough in the scenario he created. I agree 100%, as we all know film is a visual medium. The same emotions could have been conveyed more effectively with minimal lines from Holliman, as the wonderfully composed shots tell the story. There are moments here where he's talking to himself that really don't work.
Look, I don't want you to think I'm nuts or anything. It's nothing like that. It's just that I don't seem to remember who I am.
I mean, that's quite clearly a mannequin. Holliman has his own commentary track on the Blu-ray where he mentions the same problem. He also criticizes some of his acting, wishing he could have gotten some more direction and done a few scenes over. I agree that some of the delivery could have been improved, but the main culprit was that there was just too much talking from his character, a flaw that Serling pointed out years later. Holliman was also sick with a fever while shooting the episode, which could have affected his performance. When the man starts to give in to his paranoia, repeatedly shouting for help, it's revealed that the man's name is Mike Ferris, an astronaut trainee. He's been in isolation for 2.5 weeks in preparation for a solo voyage to the moon. The empty town he thought himself to be in was a hallucination brought about by intense, prolonged sensory deprivation, as the containment unit he was in was only 5 foot square. This is all explained in detail at the end, which seems a little unnecessary, but apparently part of why those lines were there was to have a more straightforward ending to satisfy the network and sponsors. So overall, Where Is Everybody is a good start to the Twilight Zone. I wouldn't rank it as one of the best episodes, but it's certainly not one of the worst, and it did its job, getting the series picked up so we can have more strange and better executed episodes. Its themes, visuals, and tone are quite exceptional. I'd recommend it as a piece of television history. The barrier of loneliness, the desperate need to be with the ones closest to us. Isolation can breed despair, a fear that the future will lack the warmth of human touch, and even glimpsing the smile of an old friend. At times, that future may look bleak, but all it takes is a thought. All it needs is a heart, and all it costs is patience. To hope. All of which can be found in the Twilight-Tober Zone.